A glimpse into the abyss. In the heart of the Drac Dominion, away from the prying eyes of lesser beings, stood the command center, a testament to Drac's technological prowess. Massive spires converged into a central chamber, dimly lit, where the gentle hum of advanced machinery provided a backdrop to the decisive whisper of interstellar plots and machinations. Inside this chamber, dominating its vast expanse, was the holo display. It shimmered and blinked, bringing to life the vastness of the universe with an accuracy no other species could boast of. Star systems, nebulae, trade routes, and fleet movements were all intricately mapped out in spectral luminescence, weaving the story of a cosmos teetering on the edge of a conflict of unseen proportions. Carvon, recently arrived from the skirmishes of Orinthia, still held the residue of battle in his demeanor. His reptilian scales glistened under the ambient lights, and a gaze sharper than the finest blade remained locked on the holo display. The myriad lights reflected brilliantly off his eyes, which darted from one point to another, assessing, calculating. To any onlooker, with his long snout and the slow, rhythmic flick of his forked tongue, he might seem like an artist appreciating a masterpiece. Yet, in truth, he was a strategist, a hunter of sorts, analyzing his prey's movements and vulnerabilities. The universe, he mused, a vast, endless expanse, yet every inch of it bends, knowingly or not, to the will of the Drac. As his mind danced from star to star, from galaxy to galaxy, a profound sense of entitlement and purpose filled him. This was not mere space. This was the canvas upon which the Drac Dominion painted its tale of conquest. But as with all stories, there were challenges, obstacles that dared to impede the march of fate. And as of late, there were gaps in that luminous tapestry. Carvon's sharp gaze narrowed upon them, sectors of Federation space where the light was duller, the information older. These were the blind spots. His jaw tightened, his earlier sense of dominion replaced by a sliver of concern.
How is it possible?
He thought. For generations, the Drac had prided themselves on their impeccable information network, built on the silent, relentless work of their drones. These gaps, these blind spots, they weren't just voids. They were an affront to the Drac's supremacy. The universe might be vast, but for the Drac to lack information on even its tiniest segment was an anomaly. He stepped closer to the holo display, reaching out with a gloved hand to touch a particularly large blind spot, the cold luminance responding to his touch. The display zoomed in, detailing the last pieces of information from the sector. But it was dated, over a month old, ancient by Drac standards. Carvon's thoughts raced.
The Federation was a formidable adversary, no doubt, but for them to find a way to disrupt Drac's surveillance grid was unexpected.
It spoke of an adaptability, a resilience, that he hadn't credited them with. He pulled back, his gaze now sweeping across the entirety of the map. Where else had they been left blind? How much of the Federation's moves were now shrouded in secrecy? It wasn't fear that crept into his thoughts, but rather a sense of exhilaration. This was the thrill of the chase, the sharpening of a blade against an equally unyielding edge. Yet the question lingered, like an itch at the back of his mind. What or who was responsible for these gaps? The Federation's technological prowess, as far as he knew, had its limits. There had to be another piece to this puzzle, another player on the board. His contemplation was interrupted by the soft chime of an incoming message. Pulling his gaze away from the vastness before him, Fleet Commander Carvon prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. But one thing was for certain. The game was afoot, and the Drac Dominion, despite these temporary setbacks, would not be deterred. The silent observers. The ambient hum of the command center's machinery barely registered to Carvon as he focused his attention on the newly retrieved data modules. Each module, an intricate array of spiraled memory chambers, held valuable intelligence from the Drac drones. Carvon admired their construction, the crystalline structures refracting light into delicate spectrums, representing data in its purest form. He placed one of the modules into the central interface. Within moments, vast constellations of data spread out before him, the holo display flickering with fresh input. Each drone had been meticulously designed, a testament to Drac engineering and their voracious appetite for knowledge. These silent observers floated through space, hidden from the naked eye, recording the machinations of the universe around them. In their subtlety and precision, Carvon saw a reflection of the Drac Dominion itself, silent, watchful, and always one step ahead. But as he parsed through the information, a growing unease settled in the pit of his stomach. There were clear signs of aging intel, movements of ships and fleets that were weeks old, strategic positions that had surely been altered by now. The drones should have relayed newer data. Their continuous flow of information was what kept the Drac Dominion informed and dominant. This wasn't the work of simple machinery malfunction or natural obstacles in space. It was more systemic, more deliberate. Someone or something was hunting their observers. He paused on a particular segment of data that seemed oddly familiar. A certain energy signature, a faint blip on the holodisplay, was eerily reminiscent. With a slow realization, the memories flooded back. His own ship, surrounded by a force he hadn't anticipated, the uncanny maneuvers, and that distinct energy reading, Helion. The Helions. Their technology was known to bend and manipulate light in ways the Drac hadn't mastered. It wasn't a stretch to assume they might have a hand in masking or even targeting the drones. He remembered his encounters with them, the weight of their gaze as they held a resilience he hadn't anticipated. There was a particularly haunting memory of a standoff, both fleets at the precipice of battle. The Helions, while technologically advanced, had been outnumbered, but they had something else. A determination, a spirit that even the vast dominion of the Drac found hard to quell. Pulling himself back to the present, Carvon's thoughts raced. If the Helions had indeed allied with the Federation, their combined strength and technological prowess posed a significant challenge. They could effectively blind the Drac in regions of strategic importance. Carvon's forked tongue flicked out in contemplation. A move had to be made, and soon. While the silent observers had provided them with an edge so far, it was clear they were now in a grander game of cosmic chess. He summoned an aide.
Get me the engineering reports on the latest Drac drones and have the intelligence team run an analysis on all Helion encounters. I want to know how they're doing it.
The aide nodded, swiftly leaving to execute the orders. Carvon, meanwhile, kept his eyes fixed on the holodisplay, a strategic predator poised to strike, but with the growing realization that his prey was evolving. Whispers of rebellion. Carvon's thoughts were a deep whirlpool of strategy and counter-strategy as he navigated the maze of information before him. The room's ambient sound was broken when a hurried set of footsteps approached. His train of thought was suddenly interrupted by a subordinate, visibly out of breath, making a sharp salute.
Commander Carvon,
the underling began, his voice edged with urgency.
We've received intelligence from our Whisperer network at the rebel base.
Carvon's reptilian eyes snapped towards the messenger, narrowing intently.
Continue.
Our Whisperers, embedded within the rebel ranks, have relayed crucial information. The rebels, they've allied themselves with the Federation.
The underling reported, the weight of the revelation evident in his voice. Producing a data slate, he added,
This contains all the detailed reports from our informant.
The slate's screen pulsed with the transmitted message from their covert operative. Carvon swiftly skimmed the content, each word solidifying his concern. The message spoke of collaborative military exercises, shared intelligence, and worse yet, discussions of unified operations to target Drac interests. The alliance wasn't just a mere pact. It was a strategic coalition forged in the fires of a common adversary.
By the void,
Carvon muttered, the gravity of the situation dawning upon him. The Drac Dominion, for all its might, had often been able to quell opposition by dividing and conquering. A unified front between the rebels and the Federation, though, was an unprecedented challenge. He took a moment, letting the information sink in. His mind, trained and honed for moments like this, began processing the implications and crafting a response. This was a pivotal juncture. The Dominion could either let this alliance consolidate and become a tangible threat or act swiftly, cutting it down while it was still finding its feet. Carvon's decision was clear.
Summon the fleet commanders,
he ordered, his tone sharp and authoritative. Within minutes, the command center was bustling with activity. High-ranking Drac officers, their scales shimmering in the room's dim light, gathered around the central holodisplay. Carvon took center stage, his presence commanding immediate attention.
The rebels have joined forces with the Federation,
He began, ensuring every eye was on the data slate's message.
Our current intelligence is outdated and our drones have been compromised in key sectors.
Murmurs of concern spread among the officers, but Carvon's next statement silenced them.
We need fresh intelligence and we need it now.
He declared, determination evident in his voice.
I want this entire sector flooded with our drones. Double, no, triple their usual numbers, and employ the newer models, the ones less susceptible to Helian interference.
Nods of agreement echoed around the room, and officers began to relay the commands. Carvon wasn't done, though.
Furthermore, dispatch 2 Drac behemoths to the rebel base. Let them understand the price of allying against the Dominion.
An officer hesitated.
Sir, the behemoths? Aren't they overkill for a mere rebel base?
Carvon's gaze turned icy.
Do not underestimate them, especially now that they have Federation backing. They may be rebels, but they are a growing spark, and I intend to snuff it out before it becomes a raging inferno.
The command center's air was thick with tension, each officer realizing the gravity of the commander's words. Carvon's adaptability was evident. He wasn't one to be complacent or ignore the shifting sands of the cosmic battlefield. Threats were to be nipped in the bud, alliances shattered, and dominion maintained. As the officers dispersed to execute his directives, Carvon gazed back at the holo display, the data slate's message still glowing. The universe was vast, filled with whispers and shadows, but the Drac intended to remain its most potent voice. A new front. The swirling galaxy map continued to cast its glow across the command center, revealing points of interest, fleet movements, and the vast expanse of known space. Commander Carvon, with a flick of his clawed hand, expanded a section of Federation territory. A specific cluster caught his attention, a location distant from the hustle and bustle of Central Federation planets and seemingly off the beaten path. He focused on one particular planet, its blue and green surface dotted with vast oceans and sprawling continents. But it wasn't the beauty of this celestial body that intrigued him. Instead, it was the weak defenses the Federation had placed around it, its isolation, and the strategic advantage it provided.
Incompetence, sheer incompetence.
Carvon mused aloud, his voice dripping with contempt. He had expected more from the Federation, especially after their recent alliances.
Their oversight shall be our gain.
Standing tall, he addressed his command team.
Orinthia was a statement of our might, but seizing it now would drain our resources. It's heavily fortified, and Zarvan's presence makes it unpredictable. We need a forward base, and this—
He pointed at the planet.
This world will be the bedrock of our next offensive.
His operations officer, a Drac of smaller stature but with an intelligence that made him one of Carvon's most valued assets, looked at the screen, processing the strategy.
Sir, the defenses on this planet appear to be minimal. It seems they never anticipated a Drac assault from this front.
That's the nature of war.
Carvon replied, his gaze never leaving the holo display.
One must always anticipate the unexpected. The Federation's complacency will be their downfall.
He felt a sense of satisfaction at the thought of outsmarting his adversaries, of striking where they least expected.
Deploy the 15 behemoths. Have them establish a forward operating base on that planet. Once secured, it will be our spearhead into the Federation's heart.
The room hummed with activity as orders were relayed. The massive Drac behemoth vessels, dreadnoughts of the void, prepared for their journey. Their sheer size and firepower were enough to subdue most threats, and against a minimally defended planet, they would be unstoppable. Carvon leaned forward, resting his scaly hands on the control panel.
This world is but a stepping stone. Once it's under our control, the core Federation planets will be within our reach. They may have won a few battles, but the war is far from over.
As his officers moved with renewed vigor, preparing the fleet for its next assault, Carvon allowed himself a moment of reflection. The universe was a vast chessboard, and he was but one player, yet every move he made, every strategy he devised, brought the Drac Dominion closer to victory. The Federation, with its alliances and its technology, was formidable, but they had one weakness that Carvon didn't. They were reactive, always responding to threats rather than preempting them. This weakness was something Carvon did not share. Framed against the luminescent holo display, his silhouette loomed, eyes fixed on the planet that would soon serve as a new Drac stronghold. The glow from this world emphasized the Federation's unpreparedness for the impending conflict on this unexpected front. Carvon's relentless ambition echoed through the vast command center, foreshadowing battles on the horizon, battles that held the power to redefine the very destiny of the universe.